This is Metrosource Minis, the official podcast of Metrosource Magazine and home of short-form interviews with your favorite personalities from the LGBTQ world and beyond. Quick, fun, and informative. It's Metrosource on the go. Out and proud since 1990. Well, hello. This is Metrosource Minis. I'm your host, Alexander Rodriguez. Well, you know, keep your enemies close, but your enemies closer. Well, we have best-selling author Josh Sabarra, veteran marketing executive and television producer who has held positions at the Walt Disney Company, Warner Brothers, Miramax, New Line Cinema, and Lifetime Networks, also some Hallmark movies. He resides in LA, where he is the president and CEO of his own public relations firm, Breaking News PR. His first book, Porn Again, a memoir, and his fiction, or is it, novel Enemies Closer are available worldwide. Please welcome Josh Sabarra.
Hey, Alexander.
So I just have to say, like, right off the bat, like, whenever you take selfies and you have that backdrop, I always assume you're at, like, a Barnes & Noble around the world. That's actually your house. You have that many books?
I do. I think I put Barnes & Noble to shame in terms of my inventory.
How many books do you have? Have you ever counted?
You know, I haven't. I'm guessing thousands. Thousands.
Wow.
I'm a big reader. I'm a nerd.
Well, okay, your first book, Porn Again, a memoir, I actually read it in one sitting because you shared everything about your life, and you have a lot of kind of like the idiosyncrasies that I had when I was a kid and, you know, coming out late. But you detail a lot of your sexual encounters with celebrities, some name dropping, first crushes, and even some adult film stars. What have you learned about yourself the most through these sexual encounters, and what have you learned about other people from your sexual encounters?
Well, you know, it's interesting. I think that's a great question. You know, there are reasons why all of those stories are in the book. And, you know, as you mentioned, I came out late and didn't really have a sexual identity until I was 31 years old. And so I think there was a little bit of a delayed adolescence. There was a sort of making up for lost time. And I think at one time I thought that maybe I could fast forward through all of those things that we do between 18 and 25 and sort of get right to, you know, setting up house with somebody. And I didn't realize that I really needed to still get through that journey and experience those things. And so the stories that I tell in the book are just sort of a way to illustrate how I sort of had to hit fast forward and then rewind and go through the things that I needed to do, make the mistakes that I needed to make, make the right choices that I needed to make. You know, all of that's in there. You know, it's you know, there are things that ended well and things that ended not so well. So that was sort of to show people the journey.
Well, and part of your journey is being part of this entertainment industry, coming out late. Now that we're in Pride season, we're talking to like the Leslie Jordan, who was our cover for our Pride issue, and I talk about, you know, being out and proud, and he was like, "Well, that's not always the case." How has being openly gay in the entertainment industry changed over the years, in your opinion? And do you think it is possible to be like a A-lister in mainstream while being an openly gay actor?
You know, I do think that we have made strides. I think there's still a lot of work to be done, but I do think that people are far more open-minded. And I have seen that evolution in the period of time that I've been in the entertainment business. Interestingly, for me in my jobs, I didn't really, it wasn't really a problem for me because I worked in public relations and marketing, which is typically an area of the business that is pretty open and accepting. And I worked with many gay men, a lot of women. So I didn't really come up against anything. You know, I dealt with a lot of sharks and horrible people, but they weren't things that related to my sexuality. I did have a number of those Me Too moments, where I had people behave with me in a really inappropriate way. But I never had an issue with my job or the way I was treated in a job because of my sexuality, because I think I worked in an area of the business that was sort of already a step ahead in a way.
So then, being a victim of that kind of sexual harassment, what kind of
Mm.
feeling? What did it even feel like when you started seeing that the Me Too movement was actually taking force, and there were people being punished for their behavior, and this kind of shift in how we look at sexuality and in gender roles?
Well, I think
How did that feel that you had been through that?
I would think it was a really important conversation, um, and one that is ongoing. It was very, and I was definitely able to empathize and really understand where everybody was coming from, having been in a position to be approached by people or treated by people in that way. Uh, at a time when I wasn't out yet. The things that happened to me happened when I was not yet out of the closet, and I talk about them in my first book, Born Again. I talk about a couple of those instances, and I was already had a sense of shame because that had been drilled into me from the time I was, in preschool, when kids started to notice there was something different about me and would call me names or bully me. Like, it was sort of drilled into me from that age that there was something wrong with me, or that I wasn't as worthwhile as other people because whatever this was that people could perceive about me that was different. And then those then flash forward to having those incidents occur. It sort of hit that shameful spot for me, and sort of pushed me even further away from being myself and embracing who I really was, because I felt even more shameful about it. I felt like maybe I had done something to bring it on, or I behaved in a way that um, told people that it was okay to treat me that way. And so I understand why when people have a hard time coming forward, that oftentimes it's a feeling of shame, and that's how I felt at those times.
Well, you certainly share a lot in your memoir. Also, we're going through quarantine, and I've got my quarantine carbs. I don't know what I'm going to wear when I can actually like go out. But we're dealing with the talk of body positivity and body issues, and
Yeah,
you're very open about your body issues,
yeah,
your use of plastic surgery, and we're supposedly maturing in the LGBT community and embracing differences of our sizes and our features. But can you tell us a little bit about your journey through your body issues and how you worked through it?
yeah. I mean, I definitely had eating disorders. I Because I was bullied so much and marginalized so much growing up, um, and those were things that were beyond my control. I couldn't control how people treated me at school, but I could control what I ate. And when you're young, there's not that much that you actually do have agency over, but what you put in your mouth is one of them. And that's why you'll see people, like, sometimes you'll see younger people like sneaking food or hoarding food. I could control that, and I could do it out of sight. And it would make me feel better temporarily for that small period of time that the food tasted good. It was an escape and a control. And what would happen is I was starting to put on weight because I was controlling my feelings with food. And then my parents, who didn't know why I was eating, would say things that wanted me to be healthy, and would say things to me like, "Oh, do you need that piece of cake? Do you need those French fries?" So I would go to school and get bullied, and then sort of come home. And even though my parents meant well, I was sort of being bullied about my eating, and there was no place that felt safe or comfortable. So I sort of went through stages of being overweight and being anorexic. And it's been something that I've had to sort of balance my entire life, because that doesn't just disappear when you are conditioned to use food in that way. Food becomes a tool, and I still struggle with it. So
Well, I'm glad you said that because a lot of people think, oh, I had body issues back then, but it is a struggle. I mean, I know from our personal conversations, you do keep track of the calories and the kind of meals
Yeah.
and what your cheat meals are, and things like that. So very important.
But also,
Um,
to be, there is this sort of focus on appearance and aesthetics. And I think we need to be more compassionate towards people because we never know what somebody's going through. Like nobody necessarily knows when you've put on weight that maybe that's something, something that's really hurtful from the past. And when you lose weight and people don't realize, like people will say things like, you're so skinny, you know, it can be just as detrimental to you. Like there are two sides to that equation, and feeling like you don't look good, it's more it's more socially acceptable to be too skinny than it is to be overweight, which is something that
you
I
can never be too skinny or too rich, as the saying goes. But it's funny because on social media, even on your social media, I follow you on Instagram. People
yeah.
will say, "Oh God, looking good, looking thin, and all that." And it's like, well, thank you, but that's not the first thing of who I am, and they're just trying to be nice. But we're in a scrolling type of environment where it looks good, looks good, looks good.
Right. And I am sensitive. I listen, most people don't mean any harm. And I think it would be great if nobody meant harm. Like there's really no reason to tear anybody down. But people sometimes are a little thoughtless about the things they say, but sometimes that's because they're not thinking, again, there's a sort of a sense of compassion we need to have with people, I think, and understand where people might be coming from. We're all dealing with something that nobody knows about.
Very true, and especially during quarantine where we've been isolated and people have had, mental issues because it
Yeah.
has been so isolating, and you just never know what's happening behind the smoke and mirrors of an Instagram profile.
Well, exactly. And then there are people like who are, making 9 million loaves of sourdough and 10 million banana breads. And I'm like, what do you want? An A plus in quarantine? Getting
Well, and
by.
you and I are cut from the same cloth. Like we're not cooking, we're postmating.
Yeah. I'm like, I'll eat your banana bread. I'm not making any.
And I don't need to see 20 pictures of it. But speaking of smoke and mirrors, you have met, hung out with, become friends with every kind of celebrity, and I do literally mean every kind of celebrity from Z-listers to A-listers. What have you learned most about the reality of Hollywood through these relationships?
I would say, I would say that I've come across, you know, it, I think friendships with celebrities seem really glamorous. And I think there was a period of time where it made me feel better about myself because I was friends with or seemingly appealing to people who other people thought were special. And so it gave me a sense of self worth, but it's sort of an empty sense of self worth because what does that really mean? And, a lot of friendships with celebrities, really, there's a lot of inequities in them because they don't necessarily have the time or the resources to be the same kind of friend to you that they expect you to be to them. And that seemed to be the now I'm not again, that's a generalization. There are some lovely people who are in the spotlight, but for the most part what I found was that they weren't relationships that were ultimately fulfilling for me, and that I was sort of running on a treadmill to be there for those people, but they weren't necessarily there for me in the same way. And so I've sort of, been much more judicious these days about having only people in my life who are really an enhancement.
Well, and this is a theme you bring up in your first fiction novel, Enemies Closer.
Mm.
There's a lot of similarities to actual Hollywood stars. I'm just
I don't
drawing
know.
some conclusions, but it's a theme that you do talk about where it's reality and how close of a friend can you have in Hollywood. But I
Mm.
want to ask you, do you think social media and aggressive press has kind of diminished the idea of a Hollywood star? Do you think we know too much about celebrities now? Or, should they be brought down to a very level like what you have for breakfast or, a picture of you in your sweats in Starbucks? It's
You know,
not like the old glamour magazines of the past.
yeah, I mean, I don't think there's a right or wrong per se. I think it's how you want to be perceived. And I think there are some celebrities who do it really well, who know how to show up at work, do the work, promote the work, and then you don't see them or hear from them. It's not constant. Then there are some people who are famous for the sake of being famous, and they're famous because they are putting things on Instagram, and they're famous because they are putting things on Twitter. And I'm not judging either way. It just depends on how you want to be seen and be perceived. But, if you look at, there are certain celebrities who really get it right. And, they show up and they're there when they have a project that they want to talk about, and otherwise they live their lives quietly. There are many people who've mastered that well. And then, like I said, there are people who are famous for the sake of being famous, and that's a whole different level of celebrity. So I think it depends on what you're looking to accomplish. And I'm not saying either one is wrong. I'm just saying it's a different path.
Girl, and I'm just telling everybody, you got to get these 2 books, and you will read through them in one sitting, like I did. Are you writing a follow-up to Enemies Closer?
Actually, I'm not allowed to talk about it yet, but I am working on a book that's going to be something totally different than you would expect from me.
Ooh, give me those pages, girl.
I know.
All right, we're going to end our Metrosaurus Mini with a little rapid fire. Are you ready?
Sure.
Okay. An actor in Hollywood that you're like, why are they cast in anything?
I don't think I have somebody who I have that strong a feeling about.
Okay. All right. That's safe. That's safe, Mr. Sabarra.
I mean, there are people who are certainly more exciting than others, but there's a lid for every pot. Somebody likes everything.
You also produce Hallmark movies. You made a cameo in this last Christmas season with your friend Nancy Grace, by the way. Yeah. What would the title of the Hallmark film be regarding your time in quarantine?
I guess it would have to be called Christmas in Quarantine.
How much you want to bet that you better trademark that real fast? Because how much you want to bet that's going to be with Eddie Cibrian and who's the girl from Lost in Space?
Oh,
Lacey Chabert, yeah. Christmas in Quarantine.
It's in Quarantine.
I love it. Strangest PR headline or story that comes to mind from over the years.
Oh, strangest PR headline. I don't know.
Or like most shocking.
God, I don't know. I mean, I think I was really surprised by the which is recent, and I don't know why this comes to mind, but the Gwyneth Paltrow vagina candle.
That's a good one. Like lit.
It's just like, what?
Like, is she with her team of people, and she's like, guys, now that we're done with Iron Man, we really need a vagina candle.
Yeah, we really need a candle that just sort of evokes my vagina.
Sounds like a good time. Your worst celebrity meeting?
Oh, I would say, I would say in terms of work-wise, I found working on a movie called The Insider about the tobacco industry to be a very difficult experience. And let's just leave it at that.
Oh, okay. We're going to IMDb that one. What would you say to Josh Sabarra at age 21?
I'm sorry?
What would you say to Josh at age 21?
Buckle up.
For many reasons.
Yeah.
Girl, that has been Josh Sabarra from Metrosaurus Minis. Josh, tell them where they can find you.
I'm on Instagram and Twitter at Josh Sabarra, JoshSabarra, and Facebook at Josh Sabarra Author. And I always love to hear from people, nice people.
So people can slide into your DMs?
What?
People can just slide into your DMs?
You know what? Open. Come on.
It's funny because I always say Sabarra because I just want to be fancy. You're Sabarra.
Yeah,
it's funny. A right or wrong?
I don't know why we pronounce it that way, but we do. I don't know.
Potato. All right, this summer read is, of course, Porn Again, a memoir, and Enemies Closer. Perfect for the beach, the pool, late nights, or reading in the office when you should be working.
And one thing, just mention that I'm donating all the royalties from the sale of Porn Again for the month of June for Pride to the ACLU. So any Porn Again merchandise, book royalties, anything, all going to ACLU.
Excellent. Thank you, Josh.
Thank you.
All right, that is our episode. I'm your host and lead writer for MetroSource, Alexander Rodriguez. You can follow me on Instagram at Alexander is on air. You can binge listen to all of our episodes featuring your favorite celebrities from our issues. Until next time, stay true and do you, boo!
That has been another MetroSource Mini. Like, share, and subscribe on your favorite podcast player, and check out the latest issue of MetroSource Magazine on newsstands or online at metrosource.com. Follow us on Facebook, Instagram at MetroSource, and on Twitter at MetroSource Mag. Until next time, stay fabulous.